Welcome to the end. Thanks for sticking with it. There's a weather and climate's very complicated. There's a lot that goes into this stuff. To try to condense it, into this little material is actually pretty tough. There are entire classes, entire degrees that go over all of what we just did. So good job sticking through to the end. So I'll try to keep this last one brief. So I've touched on some impacts of severe weather on society in some of the sections, but we'll just kind of touch on just a little bit more. As far as the past 5 years go, weather-related deaths and injuries in the U.S. So graze the events, so 50 to 60,000 severe weather events every year in the U.S. It's a lot. Injuries, pretty steady. Deaths, pretty steady as well. So in this past year, remember, heat is usually the number one natural hazard we have to be concerned about. But it turned out this past year, winter weather caused the most deaths. Tornadoes came in second. Floods, go figure, third. But most injuries tied to tornadoes. There was a lot of tornadic activity last year. Thunderstorms and high winds, and then wildfires, a lot of wildfires as well. So looking at the kind of average, red is 2020. Blue is the 10-year average from 2011 to 2020, and yellow is the 30-year average. So you can see, on average, overall, heat is still the number one killer, but it's actually coming down as far as the past 10 years to where last year it was up there, but not quite as high as some of these other things. Looking at floods and tornadoes and winter weather and cold. There's a few. I know winter weather, they said number one on the previous slide. You have to add in a few different factors to add up for some reason. I don't know why they break it all up like that. But in any case, tornado, fatalities pretty consistent. Thankfully heat deaths are on the way down, but still on average, they're still the past 30 years, heck, even the past 10 years, heat is typically the number one killer, but last year, kind of on the lower end, fortunately. What about in Arizona? So we've had from 2014 to 2020, the past 6 years, over 4,000 events. We'll look at some of those in lab. 262 injuries, 383 deaths, so a decent amount. Injuries each year, they go up and down. Deaths each year, they go up, and down. So there's some variability there. But again, looking at just Arizona during these past 6 years, we have 125 heat-related injuries, 332 deaths. All right, so 332 deaths out of 383 deaths from severe weather were associated with heat. Flooding in Arizona, number 2. Winter weather is up there as well, and in third place, not necessarily here, but you got to think about places like Flagstaff. Heat and winter weather, when we're talking about the extreme weathers, what's going on with my hair? That usually impacts, as with most hazards, lower income people, especially homeless. Heat and winter related deaths are usually concentrated in homeless or areas or people that don't have air conditioning, elderly, those sorts of things. But again, for Arizona, heat is still number one. Looking at different cities throughout Arizona, some of our 5 major cities: Flagstaff, Phoenix, Tucson, Winslow, and Yuma. Good spread around the state. You can see different precipitation values. Yuma definitely on that low end, but us and Winslow also pretty low. Tucson gets actually much more rain than we do. Flagstaff, much more precipitation. I think they meant to say rain because snow is actually a form of precipitation. Obviously, Flagstaff gets a lot of snow. Tucson actually gets a little snow here and there too. It's actually higher in elevation. It's further south in latitude, but a little higher in elevation. Number of days with precipitation: Flagstaff, that includes snow, is up there. Phoenix is on the low end. They do also get a lot of thunderstorms, a lot of hail, severe thunderstorms, kind of spread out. Average tornado watches, not much. But remember, back when we were talking tornadoes, we get a half of one per year on average in some places. You can see the total number of tornadoes reported in the counties in which these different cities are. It's there. There's, from 1960 to 2010, so in that 50-year period, 50 tornadoes, one a year, Maricopa County. More on that in lab. Looking throughout Arizona, the driest location is Yuma, or the Yuma Valley, just outside of Yuma City. It gets 2.63 inches of annual rainfall. That's actually the driest location in the U.S. as well. No, I take that back. I misspoke there. More on that in just a second. The wettest location in Arizona, Holly Lake. That's east central Arizona, almost 40 inches of rain. Snowiest location, Sunrise Mountain, I believe over in the White Mountains, 243 inches of snow on an average annually, yearly. I'm sorry, Yuma, I was correct. I thought I misspoke there. Yuma is the driest city in the U.S. Of the whole U.S., Yuma is the driest city. It's not the driest area because there's plenty of areas that are not in the city. Think Death Valley, not really a city. But as far as the city is concerned, Yuma is the driest city in the U.S. with an average of, again, just 3.01 inches of precipitation per year. It's also the sunniest city in the U.S. 90% of the year it's sunshiny, no clouds. Ugh. Ew. Flagstaff is the 8th snowiest city in the U.S., which averages about 100 inches of snow per year. This is actually higher than some cities that we think of that have a lot of snow. Buffalo, New York, Duluth, Minnesota. Heck, even Juneau, Alaska gets less snow than Flagstaff. Just some fun little facts about Arizona and our weather. So what are some natural service functions? What are some benefits of severe weather? Well, they do contribute to the health of forests. You get a hardy, fast-winded, say, thunderstorm that can really topple dead trees, which leaves canopy space for new trees to grow. It can be a source of water. Blizzards, snowstorms, thunderstorms, tropical storms can be a primary source of water for some areas. They have aesthetic value. They're nice to look at. Clouds, snow, lightning, it's all cool to look at. I feel better when there's a storm. I love to open up the garage door and sit in the garage and watch the storms roll in. I just feel better. I love to look at clouds. I don't like sun. I don't like clear days. That's boring. That is absolutely boring, mundane. There's nothing going on but the sun. Blah. Ugh. Tourism. People go to places to chase weather. Tornado chasing has now turned into from something stupid to now like a tourist thing. You can go to Kansas and drive around and look for tornadoes with these crazy people. So, how does severe weather interact with us? Well, obviously it's going to continue to threaten human lives and property as long as we live where, weather occurs, which is, let me check. Yep, everywhere. It's going to be unavoidable. Certain areas, maybe more so than not. So if we live in the path of hazards, if you live in Florida, you're going to get hit with hurricanes. If you live in Kansas, you're going to encounter tornadoes sporadically. If you live in Phoenix, it's going to be hot. There's going to be a drought in the desert. If people live in these areas where these things happen, you got to somehow take steps to minimize the damage and loss of life because it's going to happen. Predicting the events accurately will help reduce the hazard, with satellite imagery and computers, tracking thunderstorms and hurricanes and things like that. We can, pretty much get some warning out there, but, drought and how that occurs over a long period of time, there's a lot of factors that go into that. So maybe a little bit more harder to kind of prepare for and think about. But we need to prepare, personally adjust. It's vital. Know the climate, know the hazards that are most likely. Prepare your homes for those hazards. Obviously, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. It's going to be hot. We're going to run out of water here. Again, it's not a conspiracy. It is what it is. So I guess the way you can adjust, if possible, is get out. And if you can't, well, you're going to have to make do and figure out how that's going to work. All right? If your family really loves this area, okay, how much are you going to love it when there's not going to be any water? So prepare. Think long term, for these things. Before I go into a little bit more, let me give you a little more of the super secret code. Take everything that I gave you, take all those numbers that I gave you, and flip it around backwards. How about that? Take all those numbers I gave you, and then flip it around backwards. So the sequence that I initially gave you, flip it around backwards. That's how we're going to enter the code. That's fun. What else can you do? Get information. Stay up to date. the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, National Weather Service, NWS, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. All of these, kind of oversee weather and weather-related hazards, and a number of other things as well. So know this information, know how to look up this information. We'll do some of that in lab. Clothing, be prepared. One way to do that, proper clothing, and modified travel plans. If anything, hopefully you learned you don't go to Florida or the Caribbean islands in hurricane season. Yeah, it's super cheap. Oh yeah, but they don't say, oh yeah, hey, come on, the flights to Puerto Rico are only $400 from Phoenix in August. Come on to Puerto Rico. We have beautiful beaches. They don't go, oh, and it's so cheap because there's hurricanes. No, they're not going to tell you that. It's up for you to figure it out. If you travel somewhere, investigate, look at the weather. That's actually the first thing I do, is kind of get a sense of what the weather's going to be like when I go. That helps me pack. That helps me determine what activities I can or cannot do. Check it out. The weather app on your phone. Good thing to have. Well, my friends, that's it. That brings us to the end. Wow, what a long trip it's been. Weather versus climate, section 1. Know the difference. 6 climate controls, latitude being the main, but make sure you kind of understand those other ones as well. The cause of weather, the uneven heating of the earth by the sun. Severe weather, causes, locations, statistics, etc. That big section 5. Some of the effects, benefits, human interactions, all that impacts on society stuff, section 6. Make sure you got that as well. All right, so we'll stop there. It's been my honor. It's been my pleasure. Until next time. This is Professor Kovac signing off. Bye-bye.